family and friends. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, dayan ha'emet. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, who is a righteous judge. These are the words that we say upon hearing that a person has died. That in that moment of grief and sadness, in that moment of realization that one who has lived will never live again, we express our trust in God. There are things beyond our comprehension when we are born into this world, when we leave this world. But upon hearing of death, we express faith, for we know that faith and trust and security all go hand in hand. To you, Bernie's family, 6 wonderful children, accomplished, successful, 19 grandchildren, and 4 darling great-grandchildren, and 1 more on the way, and who knows, 2 more on the way, and who knows how many more yet to come. To all of you, we know that you grieve in a darkened world today. And we who have mourned understand that in your silence there is sadness, and in your tears loneliness. We gather with you to comfort you, to embrace you, to offer you our love and our support. And we gather with you not only that we might comfort and support you, but we gather with you to call upon God on your behalf, so that you might also feel God's loving presence and be comforted. Today and the days ahead are days of grief, but we reach deep into our souls to also offer gratitude for the gift of Bernie's life. As a loving father and grandfather and great-grandfather, as a loving husband and brother and son, for all that he did and said, for all his accomplishments, for all the love he shared, for the relationships that he created and maintained and enjoyed with all of you. For all of this, we are grateful. And so even in our grief, we offer our thanks to God. We turn to the Psalms, these beautiful Hebrew poems, to find comfort and consolation. And in Bernie's memory, I'd like to read the 23rd Psalm, first in the Hebrew and then in the English. Some of you may know it, and I certainly invite you to join me in our recitation. Adonai ro'i lo echsar binot deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinahaleni nafshi yeshovev. Yancheni v'ma'agalei tzedek lema'an shemo gam ki elech begeitz al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yanachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sogerai. Dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi rivaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shafti beveit Adonai le'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Bernie and Rose met when they were high school sweethearts. Bernie then went and enlisted in the Army, served in the 11th Airborne Division. And then they got married after the war and created a family, and Bernie never completely believed Rose when she said she wanted 6 children. Joke was on him, I guess. And together they created a wonderful family. And the 6 of you have in turn produced your own offspring. As I mentioned earlier, 19 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren. It isn't the numbers so much that are impressive, though they are. It is really all of your accomplishments. And what's most noteworthy about that today is that you didn't do this on your own. You did this with your father's support. It was so important to him that you all receive an education, that you were all successful, that you got to do things that you love to do in your chosen fields, and that you succeeded and excelled. And that's what he built his life around for so many years, working hard. You talked about it when we were together, that he wasn't always around because he was at the pharmacy. He was at the store working. And he provided, and he did. Your mother of blessed memory, gone many years, much too soon. Bernie was widowed as not a young man, but certainly a young middle-aged man. Your mother ran the house and took care of all of you, and your dad worked and made sure you had everything that was needed for your support and success and for your excellence. And those are qualities that he didn't teach by telling you about it or talking to you. He taught that to you by the way he lived, by example, by role model. I'd like to call upon Mark to come share words of tribute. It underestimates the relationship to call Mark a son-in-law. He was much more than that to Bernie, and Bernie was much more than just a father-in-law.
There's no way to sum up in a few minutes the story of a life as full as Bernie Miller's. I know as I say these words, each of your minds are flooded with fond memories that will be with you forever, even as we say goodbye today. The Jewish faith provides us with the comfort that we never truly die so long as the memories we create from those we touch remain. As I thought about what to say today, I began reflecting on all the things that Bernie made so special, that made Bernie so special, and especially on the things he taught me by example that made me a better person. But as I went through this process, something hit me that I had never consciously realized before. Bernie was one of the most humble persons I've ever known, and he had every right not to be. He was an esteemed member of the Army's 11th Airborne Division, a loyal friend to many, a loving husband, a devoted father who only wanted the best for all of his children, and a doting grandfather to 19 grandchildren, a successful business owner, and a compassionate pharmacist who helped thousands of people over 4 decades. And of course, one of the most successful gamblers the North Coast has ever known. But you know what? In the 36 years I knew him, I can't recall a single instance of him ever bragging about it. He could talk for hours about you, his family, his friends, but not himself. And that's why he was so easy to love and respect, because he made each of us feel special. Most of you know my father became seriously ill when I was 13, and from the moment I started dating Laura at the tender age of 19, he understood I needed a father figure in my life, and he readily stepped into that role. Please don't think I'm being disrespectful when I say that for the last 30 plus years, I saw him as my father, not my father-in-law. Laura and I have trouble socially. We don't go out much. We don't attend doctor, country club functions. We have a small, very close group of friends. And while some of you may feel that that's not a desirable attribute, it was always one of the things we most admired about Dad. There wasn't anything phony about him. What you saw is what you got. Take it or leave it. If not, tough. He didn't care if people smirked at his closeout bargain fashion sense. His open disdain for the Browns on the rare occasion when they beat the spread. His insistence that he did not accidentally lock the van with the engine running on the top of a 120-degree Masada, or the fact that a good meal was only defined by the meat and the potatoes. He didn't care if you thought it was not a good idea to give the grandchildren ice cream at 2 o'clock in the morning. Whether you considered Fox News a reputable news channel, and whether you agreed with his ability to overlook our mistakes that we made as we created our own lives and families. Once you understood and respected that sincerity, he would do anything for you. As we grow older, the more we realize how rare it is to have someone in our life that we can truly rely on. Bernie was that person for most of us. We all know what mattered most to Dad, why he worked so hard and sacrificed so much, his family. He was our biggest fan, and our success was his success. Over the past year or so, glimpses of Dad before his stroke were few and far between. He so loved being a parent, and even more so, a grandparent. He had already had his stroke before the birth of his first great-grandchild. But a little over a year ago, I witnessed something that will stay with me forever. During Thanksgiving of 2015, my little 11-month-old grandson, Harry, was standing next to Papa, and as he sat in his wheelchair, Harry put his hand on his knee. Papa reached out tenderly, placed his hand on Harry's, and the two of them stared intently, gazing into each other's eyes for several seconds. And even though neither of them had the ability to say anything meaningful, they both knew they had a special bond, and each of them realized how important the other one was and how much they loved each other. David, you were always the number one son. You were the only one to follow into his footsteps as a pharmacist. You embraced so much of what made your dad so special, an unparalleled work ethic and providing for your family. He so loved hearing your voice every single day, especially after his stroke. Larry, he reveled in your success as a world-class weightlifter. He knew every record you broke and kept every article and magazine you were ever mentioned in. He was so proud of your accomplishments and your interminable drive to succeed. It was more important to him than it was even to you. Stephen, I know you've been the farthest geographically, and you weren't able to see him as much as the rest of us. But please believe me when I tell you, it didn't matter. He felt as close to you as if you had seen him every single day. He loved sharing the stories of all your famous patient encounters, your recognitions and awards. But whether you realized it or not, he was most proud of your huge heart. Your sincere concern and compassion for everyone is a trait all parents yearn for to see in their children. It was also the reason he worried about your happiness the most. Michael, you've had the most difficult path and had to shoulder the most responsibility. Being a caring, competent physician is hard enough without having to be the sole provider for your own father for over 30 years. I know I'm speaking for the entire family when I say thank you, Michael. We all know that if you hadn't been willing to care for his health, he wouldn't have gone anywhere else. Bernie was stubborn, and he wouldn't have listened to anyone else. He trusted you more than any parent could ever trust a child, and we are so grateful for your efforts at keeping him well for so many years. Laura, I've been privy to witnessing the miraculous transformation of a young, insecure girl to a strong, independent woman. For years, you always looked to your father for support and consolation whenever you were going through a rough time. As he grew older, it was so apparent how much that role reversed. He knew with all his heart that you would always be there for him and ensure that he had everything he needed. Amy, I know how much he meant to you, especially after your mother died. Family was always the most important thing in the world to your father, and he was so proud of the personal sacrifices you've made to foster and ensure the health and happiness of yours. To paraphrase your favorite song, Dad, you did it your way, and you did it right. We are all so fortunate, so grateful to have had you in our lives.
As Mark said, Papa, my father-in-law's favorite song, was I Did It My Way by Frank Sinatra, and he listened to it all the time. We played it when we called him up to light his candle at the grandchildren's bar and bat mitzvahs. We felt it was appropriate. One last time. And now, the end is near, and so I face a final curtain. My friends, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway. And more, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do and saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, excuse me, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried. I've had my fill, my share of losing. And now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did it all that. And may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, not me. I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not. To say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way. Yes, it was my way.
Thank you. The family gave me permission to mention that in addition to his own very successful gambling, Bernie was, let's call it a part-time bookie. They gave me permission to say that, so I'm sharing it because it's part of the totality of his life, and it paid for more than its share of education. What they didn't give me permission to say, and I'm going to honor their request, is I'm not going to name names of his clients and betters. You know who you are. The pharmacy where he did work so hard and for so many years had a kind of Damon Runyon-esque cast of characters that were in and around and through it. And of course, as Mark said, he was a compassionate pharmacist. He took care of many people over the years, helping them and doing for them. And a wonderful story of one young boy caught shoplifting. And he wouldn't let Bernie call his parents. These are days of rotary phones. He kept hanging up the phone as Bernie held him with one hand and tried to hold the phone and dial with the other. And so Bernie just called the police that knew him, since he was a businessman in the community, and 10 cop cars and cops with guns drawn, and scared this poor little 10-year-old boy. That's scared straight if I ever heard of it. You have so many, a lifetime of wonderful memories and wonderful stories. Stories you can tell about your dad, stories he told about you. With his boys, aggressive basketball games over the years. A lifetime of tales with his best friend, Marvin Greenbaum, Marvelous Marvin. And inside family jokes that everybody knows about. A history of practical jokes between Bernie and Susan that's gone on for many, many years. Susan making like she shot up his Mercedes so that he could blame it on the valet one holiday. But of course, as has already been said, what was most important was his family, all of you. And the time you spent together in Cleveland and out of Cleveland, the family trip with many of you to Israel 15 plus years ago. Your father and your mother both taught you what it was to be committed and loyal to family. And he lived that with all of you, and you in turn lived that with him and with each other. And as Amy said last night, you could always call him if you needed some advice or counsel, whatever it was. And if you just needed something to be fixed, you could call him for that too. He was handy and knew how to take care of things and fix things. He instilled in all of you a sense of Yiddishkeit and a very strong sense of commitment to Israel. He himself was a strong supporter of Israel, a committed Zionist. He read the Jerusalem Post every day, planted trees in Israel and a grove in Rose's memory. Our tradition teaches that when we die, we take nothing with us from this world. Our material goods mean nothing in death. Bernie wasn't particularly materialistic anyway. What the rabbis teach is that what survives us is not any material wealth that we have acquired. What survives us is the Keter Shem Tov, the crown of a good name, that some people, in the way they live, in the way they love, some people acquire for themselves. Bernie earned that Keter Shem Tov for himself, that crown of a good name, so many times over and over and over again. And that's what he leaves to all of you, his large, immediate family and his extended family and the friends. He leaves us his Keter Shem Tov, the crown of his good name, the doing for others, the caring, the support. And every time we help a person, whether it's a family member, one of our children or grandchildren, whether it's a friend or a stranger, whoever it is, every time we help them and provide some assistance, some counsel, we honor Bernie's memory and we carry the crown of his good name into the future. With every kind word we speak, with every generous act we perform, we pay tribute to his life and we honor his memory. Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, the memory of a good and a righteous man, is forever a blessing to all who knew him, to all who loved him. Amen. In the book of Ecclesiastes, we read this verse: the eye never has its fill of seeing. Young or old, those who depart this life never see enough of their world, never cherish their loved ones enough, never complete all of their tasks before they are called home. How they yearned for yet another respite from that final summons, and how we yearned to have them close to us for another challenge in our lives, another joy, another precious moment. O God, we call upon you. Be now with Bernie's family, with those who mourn, because whenever parting comes, it comes too soon. Console the mourners. Be near to them even when your light seems distant. Sustain them, O God, till their time of healing. Amen. Please rise. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Im Kedoshim Utehorim Kizohar Harakia Mazhirim Et Nishmato Beryl ben Avraham Shehalach Leolamo Began Eden Tehei Menuchato Ana Bal Harachamim Hastirehu beseter kanafecha leolamim vayitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Beryl ben Avraham, to Bernard Z. Miller, for he has now entered eternity. O God of mercy, we pray, may he find refuge in your eternal presence, and may his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance, and we all say, Amen. Please be seated. Following our burial service at Mount Olive Cemetery, the family will return to observe Shiva today and tomorrow at the home of Susan and Michael Miller, 190 Honeybell Oval in Orange. That's in the Orange Tree section. And Michael and Susan asked me to announce that today there will be valet parking available to help with the weather conditions. Should you wish to honor Bernie's memory with a charitable contribution, his family suggests that you direct your kindness to the Jewish war veterans.